Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everybody. I'm Carey Conley, your host of the Moving Through and Beyond podcast. I bring you really cool people that I have met in my life, and I know a lot of really cool people of all ages. And one of those people I want to introduce to you today is a great friend of mine, although very young, good friend, very wise, Jeremy Montoya. And Jeremy, you're going to learn a lot about his life and what he's doing right now, but you are just crushing it in helping new coaches launch coaching online businesses, right? And really making money, which is the key.
Absolutely.
Because so many of them are not.
For sure.
Yeah.
For everyone that is, there are 100 that are not. And I appreciate you inviting me and having me on here. It means a lot. We go so far back. So
we do.
It's an honor to be here in front of you and in front of your audience. And I just feel honored and privileged to be here.
You, like I said, you are young, but you're a great friend. And I appreciate that. And wise. I mean, seriously, I come to you for advice all the time. So I'm honored as well. And just have so much that I want you to share with everybody. You know that mostly my audience are people who are listening to this because they want to learn more about how people are moving through this life. And I've had a wide variety of people come on with different adversities. So to start with, just tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I've had massive luck in my life, but it's totally uncontrollable. And when I boil it all down, it comes back to being blessed with really good parents. My one advantage in life is I was blessed with really, really good parents. And they made certain decisions along the way while me and my sister were very young that have shaped me and her and like our whole family. And so I come from LA, and overnight, our neighborhood changed. I was too young to remember it, but I was about 4 years old when we left, and we left because the O.J. Simpson trial and the Rodney King riots changed our neighborhood overnight.
Wow. See, and I never knew that you were from L.A.
Yep.
This whole time I was thinking you were from New Mexico.
My family is.
Okay, yeah.
All my family's from Las Cruces.
Okay.
And then I was born in California. I've lived in New Mexico. When I was younger, we went to Albuquerque. I had an aunt who just wasn't doing all that well. She's still with us. Will probably outlive all of us, to be honest.
Yeah.
And once she got better, we left so my parents could have better job opportunities. And we landed in Chandler, Arizona. We had a couple family friends that were here. They helped us get on our feet at the time.
Yeah.
Because in hindsight, now looking back, my parents were also very young at that time in their life when we moved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So came to Arizona in 96 or 97-ish. But going back to my upbringing, one of the other unique advantages that I think a lot of people might look at some as a disadvantage, and there probably totally is, because there's overuse and underuse of everything in life, right?
Yeah.
Being born in LA County, if you were bilingual or there was a tinge that you knew Spanish, there was a high likelihood that you'd be placed on a slower learning path.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the decisions my mom specifically made, which we'll be talking about a little bit more here, is she chose to not teach my sister and I Spanish. And there are probably people right now who would look down on that, but that single decision made everything about my future, about my career in public speaking, in business and entrepreneurship, what I do all day now in front of the microphone, in front of the camera, on social media and online, right? And so like that, I was blessed with really good parents, unique advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to learn, and my mom and dad were bilingual upbringing. Mostly, it was kind of half split household when they were being raised with Spanish versus English. But I think my mom saw, number one, how you could be placed in the slower learning path, but also that there were disadvantages if Spanish was your main language. And I think she feared that greatly and made the decision to speak basically zero Spanish around us. And like I said, there have been people in my life who have totally judged me for that. All of them being Spanish speaking.
So you cannot speak Spanish?
No, I know enough to get me in a fight, but not enough to get out of it.
That's a great way to put it.
I know the curse words. I know all of that, and very little outside of that.
Okay.
But not enough to get around or get by.
All right. Another thing I did not know.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Wow, your mom, so wise, which I can see where you get that from. And your dad, I recall you told me, was an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, had his own, when I was younger, he was doing carpet and vinyl for a company. And as we moved from California to New Mexico and Arizona, he started his own business. And my dad's really good at spotting the trends. So carpet was big at one point in time, and he was on it. And then vinyl became the thing in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right back in the day, like big old rolls of vinyl. Smells like glue. And I only know that because, being brought up around the materials. And then tile was really big in Arizona, but it wasn't the main thing being installed at new homes. It wasn't what people were asking for. And then it became that. And he was ahead of that. And then he also, like any trend inside of tile, floor, wood, he's in front of and can spot those things naturally. And so has just continued to move and ebb and flow with the times. And I saw, while he didn't grow a Fortune 500 company or anything like that, I saw someone who was able to control his own schedule, who as his business developed and he got team members and started just to become the face of it and the person who shook the hands, closed the deals, made sure everything was going right, he'd be home at 10, 11 a.m. I hadn't done my chores yet, right? I'm like watching TV, no supervision, right? So I'm doing whatever I want.
Yeah.
My sister's still asleep.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it was in our childhood as well. That's one of the things that shaped me too. But he'd come home and he would always say, it doesn't take all day to do a day's work. And so I saw someone who worked super, super hard to get to a place where when his family was a bit more mature, he was able to be at every sporting event that my sister and I had. My sister was very athletic. I did lacrosse in high school a little bit later on, and he was at every single game, picked us and took us up from every practice, like very rarely and seldomly missed anything that we had going on. And a lot of it was because of these decisions that he made, and that afforded him the ability to be more in control of his schedule, be more in control of his time. He had to work super hard.
Yeah.
Like my dad's a very
no
hard
doubt.
working man.
Yeah.
And like I'm not the opposite necessarily, but like I want to be inside. I'm not trying to be on my knees doing flooring and tile and that sort of stuff. I think a part of him maybe wanted a son that would maybe want to take over the business or something like that. But my dad never once pressured me with that. Maybe I would have under different circumstances or something, but never pressured me, never made me feel like, and like the whole parent thing. My parents were maybe overly accepting, right, of who my sister and I were and who we were becoming and still becoming, honestly. And that openness allowed for us to just figure things out on our own, feel things out, try things out. And also, I feel maybe made us a little bit less judgmental about others and in their own journeys too. My mother raised my sister and I very differently, although with love, right? And she parented us how we each needed to be parented. And I think that's just so rare these days. I mean, I think it's even rare for both parents just to still be around,
I think it's rare, period, Jeremy, to hear that. Definitely was not a part of my generation growing up. And I wish, looking back as a mom, I would have, I didn't ever stunt my children from doing things, but I clearly, looking back, I could have maybe asked them more questions about, what do you really want in your life? What's your vision for what you want? I think things could have turned out a little differently.
And hey, and that's really hard for parents to have that conversation with kids because like, yeah, my parents were great and some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my whole life.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, you don't value those things maybe as much as you might as an adult or in hindsight.
Yeah.
And so like I'm stubborn in my own ways.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe them being more strict and asking more questions would have served me a little bit. But like at the end of the day, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. Right? I was presented with the situations and circumstances that I needed at those times.
Yeah.
And also my parents aren't perfect.
Yeah.
And so I am very understanding of those things and of flaws in general, whether it's parents, family, of others. Like I now know in hindsight how not perfect life is, how they kept it really together to try to make us not feel pressured with what was going on, right? With financial pressures, or if they ever had issues going on, because although we never really saw it, my sister and I'm sure their marriage wasn't perfect at all times either. And people change as they get older, right? People are always evolving. It's probably why I am one of those people that like, I'm not in my final form yet.
Yeah.
I feel at the very beginning of
Jeremy,
everything I'm doing.
How old are you?
I am 33.
Okay, I turned 61 tomorrow, and I feel the same way.
Happy birthday, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Yes. And it's all
But I
perspective.
feel the same way. It totally is perspective. But what I see happening in your generation, Jeremy, and I've been talking to a lot of young adults lately, and I got the opportunity to speak at a high school a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Tough crowd. I just have
bet.
to tell you,
I
because
bet.
you can't read what they're thinking, and
Their
they don't
attention's
want to
already
interact,
gone
right?
before it's even started, right?
But one of the things they clearly say loud and clear is that they are very afraid to take any risks, because they feel like if they go down one path and it doesn't work, that they're doomed. They're paralyzed. I don't know if you know this.
I didn't.
They literally will tell you, and I've heard it from different, not just this high school kids, but other areas. A 33-year-old told me this just the other day, that he's just so scared that if he goes in any one direction and it doesn't work out, he's stuck and he's done.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, okay, well, I'm 61, and my word this year is reinvention, because I'm going through a whole new phase of my life. And yeah, it just really worries me that they think that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, they should be worried.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to say that.
Yeah.
But they should be worried, because if they do follow the public education system and what the government has lined up for them, it is absolutely a dead end. It is very not full of life.
Yes.
It is very not full of soul-guided mission and purpose. Like, Carey, these kids should be scared.
They should be scared.
They should be so scared about what the world has planned for them, because it's not much.
Right. Yeah, and that is a whole path we can go down about the education and all that and what's happening in this world. But yeah, if they are choosing that path, which unfortunately they are groomed for that more than they are groomed to think, hey, I think I want to be an entrepreneur. Or
I don't even think that's the word they go for anymore. It's you do what's laid in front of you, or are you going to be an influencer?
Yeah. So
entrepreneur
true.
is now the word. Let's be honest here. First
Yeah.
time I've ever even had this thought, though. Entrepreneur is now synonymous with influencer.
Okay.
Those lines have been completely blurred. You are either clocking in 9 to 5, doing what someone else tells you all day, or you're in some way trying to influence others.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing, but it is reality.
Yeah.
I had a buddy. He wasn't even an influencer. This was 3 or 4 years ago, and he, not even in our space remotely, but an observer of society. Okay. You don't have to be an entrepreneur or an influencer to be seeing what's going on in the world, or if you have kids in your life, or young adults, or even 30-somethings, to get a pulse for what's going on in the world. It's not the same landscape. The lines have been blurred between influencer and entrepreneur. And he said, leaving high school, if you don't have thousands of followers on Instagram, he said different words, but he said, you messed up. This is a dude who didn't have the big influence or all that, but he's like, I have a couple thousand and I'm not even trying. If you are in high school in the day and age where they're born with these devices now, these kids have them before they're going into any sort of public education. I bet, and I don't know this, but I bet parents are very scared to send their kids to school without a phone. And I bet the kid doesn't know a life without a phone, because that thing babysat them.
Yes.
Their entire upbringing.
Yes.
Right?
Makes me crazy.
And like, think about like video games and TV was the things that our parents wanted to limit us when we were younger. It wasn't the internet, because we didn't know that then. Side tangent, but very related to why we're at where we're at and why our next generations are at where they're at. And then you can start to make your assumptions for where that ends up.
Yeah.
The phone has so distracted us. From the moment we wake up, we know a life without a phone. Me, barely.
You're right.
But we know life without being tied to these devices. I think that 10, 20 years down the road, maybe later, that it is likely and a big possibility that cell phones and internet access and social media access, because all these things are now also synonymous. Social media is the internet now, right? It's how we interact with.
It's how we get all of our information. Yes.
That it will be looked at how cigarettes were post 60s, 70s, 80s, where doctors were prescribing cigarettes. To your grandparents, they were prescribing Camels. And they were smoking on airplanes, which, if you didn't know, next time you get on an airplane, you see the buckle of your belt, you also see no smoking. You ever seen someone smoke on an airplane? No. But at one point in time, I went to Kansas City, Missouri when I was a junior in high school. For Skills USA, shout out to Skills USA. We went to Denny's, and we had to make a decision at the front.
Right. Smoking or non-smoking.
Smoking or
Well, I
non-smoking.
grew up in that world, so I remember all of it. But,
that was gone in California and Arizona through my upbringing. And, we know why,
Yeah,
right? It's just
yes.
way more blue on that side of
Yes,
things, right? Way more
right.
liberal on that side.
yeah,
But,
healthier.
it depends on your definition of health, I guess, and how much.
And depending on where you're living.
Yeah, for sure.
You and I both have lived in towns where not so much.
Yep.
So,
100%.
So talking to these young adults with all this stuff, Jeremy, what would you, if you had somebody in your life, and I know that I think, and I could be making an assumption, a lot of the coaches that you coach are somewhat in your age group? Yes, no?
No, they
Okay.
are mostly my senior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that does not surprise me, actually.
It doesn't surprise me either. I have gotten my entire life for no reason that I can understand, but I've come to accept it. From 2-3 years old, I have been told I'm far more wise. Like,
I've told you that how many times? I mean, you know so much more about the world than I do, Jeremy.
On repetition, and I'm unexperienced, in all honesty, in the grand scheme of things. I know how much, because of what I do know, I know how much I don't know.
Yeah. But you spend time like really listening, researching.
I'm very observant.
Yeah.
I have no different access to the internet or to other people than anybody else, but I am extremely observant. I'm very slow with my decision-making process because of what I've learned of myself. That's something I've recently had to come to accept. That I'm not the person that makes the fast decision that can see something and immediately go. Like, I do have to wait.
Got it.
To get the right.
So would this be a piece of advice that you would give a young adult now? What would be some of your pieces of advice?
Yeah, and like I have a godson who's 9. His older brother is 22, but that 22-year-old was the little baby cousin, or he's my cousin's son, right?
Okay.
So it's like the little baby cousin at one point in time in my life, and now he's one of my best friends. But like these younger people in my life, if I was talking to my godson, one, I try to be the example. Because my mom taught me something, which is monkey see, monkey do. That can work very much in your favor, or it can work very much against you in the wrong environments. I am a product of my environment, and it was again internalized. I went and spent 6 months in New Mexico and Las Cruces, which I would not advise. It's not the worst place in the world, but if you have ambitions, this is where they go to die. And it hurts me to say that because my ancestors are from like that part of Earth. And I have a cousin who was making film documentary at one point. And he was calling it Lost Causes instead of Lost Cruces. And it's like, dude, being there, I really tried hard. But I realized that like
I understand this.
I need people like you around me, even if it's through Zoom or the phone. The proximity around me shapes me. Yeah. And so if I'm going to be a part of someone else's, like my godsons or my cousins or anybody else's, I'm very cognizant that this has been something I've had to learn over time, that people watch what I do.
Yeah.
And so when I didn't have the switch turned on, I just now realize that around other people, I do have to have a switch on. Because that switch off puts me in a place that I do not want to ever be in. Right. Which is where most people, massively speaking, kind of are. It's an autopilot. It's taking cues from other people. It's watching what others do. And then when that becomes okay, without question, it becomes what we all do as society. So I'm very aware, anyone around, what I'm doing, what they're seeing, because it is monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. You're either influencing or you're getting influenced. So I can tell you this, that like even my social media presence, even the way I interact with my family, which might be different than I might act with colleagues or be with colleagues or clients. Sure. I really try to be even keel across the whole spectrum. Yeah. Just to be me. Yeah. And to create people around me who can accept me for me and so on, because that isn't always the case when I first meet people. But I'm cognizant, and I think of my godson. And I think like if I had to give advice, it would be to have your own plans for yourself. That if you do not create plans for yourself, there will be a circumstance or a situation that you will continuously attract where authority comes in and tells you what to do. That authority could be a boss, and I'm not saying any of these things are good or bad things. This is no judgment if you're in life and in this, you find yourself in this situation, you ever have to go back to it, because you have to do what you have to do for yourself with what you're working with, right? Like, I'm not the tallest person in the world. I try to not let that be a self-confidence thing, right? I doubt some things that I do. I try not to let that seep in and become the leading thought. So my word of advice is, if you don't find a way to be and delegate and be in charge of your own time. And it doesn't happen overnight. This is a skill. You have to learn first the importance of time.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to go through a lot of time to get the appreciation. I came across a book called, and then I'll link this back, across the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yes.
At the time,
familiar with it.
At the time, I had a great retail career going on with Apple. And when I read that book, it pointed out to me something so obvious that I thought I would have learned by the age of 20. And it was this idea of the new rich. And the new rich, they look at time and having control of their time versus having all of the money and the resources in the world. In this third dimension, in this current era, money is oxygen. It is what you have. And like, that's one of the things that so many, I think, young adults can't accept.
Yeah.
Because we've also... our public education system has made this whole thing the world has made it
time of money,
instant gratification, of pressures, of everyone else is doing it, of you're not capable of doing this or that. And it's like those people and authorities in your life, while they think they have your best interest in mind, they really have their own best interest in mind. And sometimes it's not, this is going to be better for you. It's, you should do what I'm doing because I feel better about myself. And I feel less weird about myself and in conflict with myself when I don't have others around me who are challenging that. I can't be around certain kinds of people.
Yeah.
Because my vibration does not work with that.
You know that I get this, right? We've talked so much about this, and the advice you're giving is so wise. One, it's becoming aware of what's going on. And that's always the first step, right? Become aware of what's really, really happening in our world right now and what the educational system wants you to do.
And it ain't pretty.
It's
not. Once you become aware, I can tell you that it's very dark at first. There's light at the end, but you have to be so meticulous about finding it. Was it Think and Grow Rich, where it's the seed of every negative or bad circumstance comes with the seed of something positive?
Right.
I think that is the most scientific, eloquent way of putting it. Other ways of putting it, as above, so below. Other ways of putting it, macro, micro. Other ways of putting it, from ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It is there is no balance in universe. It's only constant imbalance that is the balance. And it oscillates from our human perspective between negative and positive.
Yeah, I hear you talk about that a lot.
So we walk around all day judging things as good, or we judge them as bad. When someone's saying something to you, you turn a little awareness on, and your subconscious, the little kid inside of you, will be trying to read if this person likes you or not. If you're in trouble or not. Is everything okay or not? These like little voices in us, because we have to in order to survive, or at least historically, that judgment allowed for us to survive. But judgment is not necessarily our purpose here in life. And when we do judge things as good or bad, we're not always going to be right. And sometimes the best things, I say this a lot, sometimes the best things that happen in your life turn out to be the worst things down the road. And sometimes the worst things that happen to your life, which I think really this is what your show is about, end up becoming the best things. We're on this pendulum.
Yes.
Most people all day are judging everything going on, that they have no creative energy to keep the awareness on of what's actually going on, to zoom out. Like, all of that's hard to teach. The only way I know of teaching it is of being it, of existing it, of radiating it in any way I can. My advice for the kids these days is like, if you have to find a way to get in control of, over time, little by little, the minutes in your day.
Yeah.
Because in doing that, you can now become more aware of what else is out there in the world. You can become more aware of people's agendas for your own life.
Yeah.
And like really becoming your own authority in your life. And this is easier said than done.
Well, you're probably talking a whole new language to it. A bunch of people right now are like,
Probably.
wait a minute.
Probably.
I can become aware. I can, you said a minute ago, make my own plan, which, is my whole jam. Getting people to write their vision, like bigger than life, what's real for them, and start reverse engineering the plan, right? And also understanding that you are in control of your own time. When people say to me, right now I'm working the 9 to 5, but I really want to start my own coaching business, but I don't have the time. I have to get them to think about the fact that you do have the time. We just have to change the perspective, become aware that you can change it, and then create a strategy. Everything in life is just strategy. It's just strategy. Like, I want to have a house on Coronado Island at one point, Jeremy, right? And a lot of people would walk around there thinking, this is just never going to happen. And to me, it's just a matter of, this is just a strategy. I got to figure out what it's going to take and just create a plan, which is everything you're talking about right now, is leading yourself.
What's the quote? It's there's no value in a plan, but all the value is in the planning, or something like
Okay.
something to that effect.
Yeah.
That like plans are also at the end of the day worthless if you do nothing with them.
Yeah.
But it's better than having dreams, and dreams are better than having hope. Although you need both of those to execute on said plan.
Right.
Like today, literally on my podcast that I launched most recently,
Yeah.
it's all just for coaches. And so we talk about very just coach business stuff, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sharing inside of there what to do once you have your first 15K month, once you've brought in $15,000 or your first 15K cash collected. And if you're not there, my advice was make a plan for what you're going to do with said $15,000. You have your first 15K month. What are you going to do with it? How much of it needs to go to taxes? How much are you going to be saving, which should be 10% of every dollar, 10 cents for every dollar? What causes are you supporting? Are you tithing?
Yeah.
What does your money mean? Because money doesn't matter until you give it meaning. For me, it's what future can I create and experiences can I provide for my family, my godson, retiring my dad completely, right? All of those can be dreams or hopes, but if you come up with a plan, you know the number. I think there's something magical that happens in your subconscious. Tony Robbins would call this the reticular activation system.
Yep.
Something you can look up, reticular activation, just say it into Siri. And something starts to happen where your subconscious mind, your unaware mind, starts to find it starts to go to work for it. Mm-hmm. It starts to go to work for you. And I did all of this while still at a 9-to-5. I came across that 4-Hour Workweek book and I took the cover off of it because I realized that it kind of looked like a Harry Potter book without the hardcover book cover on it. And I also didn't want my colleagues to see me reading this book because
interesting. Yeah.
Because anything I do, and you probably feel like this too, or maybe it's just a me thing, but like when I do something, people get curious about it.
Yeah.
They want to know what I'm doing and what I'm up to because people do come to trust my discernment and my judgment. That can be a handicap for people. So I try to just help them to foster it in and of themselves.
Okay.
But they're going to do what I'm doing, or they're going to start questioning what they're doing if I'm not doing that anymore. At Apple, I had a lot of influence.
Yeah.
I was very aware. At my 6-month mark, I decided I wanted to be full-time at Apple, and I wanted to retire from this company. Had a 4-year journey with them. In my 3rd year, I became very aware that as really good as the culture is and how much we care about our people, and we have this credo, we have this way of life, we have these kind of esoteric rules that we go by, which is why I'm an Apple fanboy still to this day and before then. But I realized that one slip up and I'm out. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the relationships that I've built, regardless of all the good deeds that I've done before. And although I didn't have a target on my back, I felt like it. I felt like I could say, do, overlook the wrong thing.
Right.
And I could be done. And I had never had that feeling before. And it was the scariest feeling in my life.
Yeah.
And so I started reading this book and understanding The New Rich to bring it back, to understand that time is more important than money because you can't get time back. Me and you are never going to get this 30, 40 minutes back. And so by doing this, we're saying no to everything else in life right now.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're making decisions all day. When you do something, you're voting for one thing and you're voting against others. And people who are in control of their times, whether they're business owners or you think of like an Elon Musk, a Mark Cuban, right? Mm-hmm. And any of an entrepreneur you can think of, these people started making plans for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then they just started following the plans and working the plan, and a whole ton of failure along the way. And through those failures and hardships, because being aware is not an easy life.
Yeah.
But
it's truly not, because you have to take some risks and work through a whole lot of mindset shifts, which I think is the hardest work we do as humans. It's changing how our mind thinks. I work on it every single day, and I know you do too. It's not easy.
Metacognition, thinking about your thoughts.
You always had the biggest words for me, Jeremy.
I didn't come up with that one. I one time said discombobulated in a news interview. There was like an accident. Delbert came and interviewed me, if you guys know Delbert. And I managed to say discombobulated on it was New Year's Eve. And so everyone was watching it and passing around the party later on for New Year's.
Oh, how funny.
Simpler times.
Yeah, you are truly, like I said at the top of this, one of the wisest young men I know. And it's no accident that you influence people just organically. It's because you shine that light for everybody, Jeremy. And I've seen you lead yourself first and then lead everybody else. And I know your business right now, coaching coaches. What I love about what you do is, because I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs, now I've got a whole new perspective on that, is most of them I found out were running really expensive hobbies. And I know you find that too, which is why you're so passionate about coaching these coaches to reach their first 10K month, 15K month, right?
100%.
So-
And doing it in a way where they can enjoy it at the end of it, but also create longevity.
Yeah.
As I think so many of us don't know it, but we can be short-sighted.
Yeah.
Like when I say 15K a month, like the big number was 10K a month. Like that's marketed everywhere because that sounds so small but doable, but it's also very short-sighted. My vision for my students and for my market, the people who follow me, is far beyond 10 to 15K a month.
Right.
It's far beyond just having a business. It's about creating a business while simultaneously creating and living an epic life.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait for some miracle, for some payday, for some exit in order to live your epic life. That can start now if you make the right decisions. And as you start to become more aware of the right decisions, because I'm such an advocate for coaching and having coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a sporting thing,
Yeah.
well, you need coaches. That's very normal for everyone.
Sure.
Or it's an individual thing you're trying to get better at in your life. Your odds of success in whatever that is go through the roof when you invest in yourself and have someone who's been there, who's done it,
Right.
Who has the life that you're wanting. Everything is not only figure outable, it's all been figured out. There's nothing new on God's beautiful green earth. It's all just, Steve Jobs said it, everything's just a remix,
Yeah.
right, of everything else. He's quoted with a quote that's often misconstrued of good artists cheat, great artists steal. Great artists steal from multiple artists and it becomes their thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all anything new that you're coming across in the world is. It's a remix on something else. It's the combination and pulling from other cultures or other things and combining them together, right? It's a melting pot that creates new things.
Yeah.
And so everything's been figured out. You don't have to go it alone in whatever you're wanting. All you have to do is go find the person who's already done it, who has the life that you are wanting. Like when I'm hiring a coach, I'm looking at what car they're driving.
Correct.
I'm looking at what woman's on their arm. I'm looking at what they're thinking about in life. But any one of those things might not be the determining factor, but all these things are clues for me with what do they have figured out and what can I learn from them? And when I do make that investment in myself and I do take that action or I do start learning from them, their word becomes God. Everything else gets turned out and turned off. That's also a skill set that can frustrate a lot of people in my life, that you can't tell me anything once I've made up my mind or I've found the person that I'm now going to model and emulate and work
Which
towards.
is so wise because there's so much information right now that we can pull from. And it all looks super sexy, right? Especially if it's the free stuff. And I'm a big advocate for paying and investing in coaches. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't have those people. So yeah, highly recommend it. So one last piece of advice for anybody trying to maneuver through any kind of adversity in life right now, trying to figure out what their next path is. What would it be?
This has been on my head and heart even before we had the discussion about coming on here and you inviting me on, which again, big thanks. Of the Think and Grow Rich, if you're going through something bad right now, that however big and bad that is to you, if you look for it and if you search for it, that badness contains the equal seed of something good.
Yes.
The issue is that a lot of us find something bad and we accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that that's how it's going to be. And we get jaded in life. We get jaded in our relationships. We get jaded in possibility. And we begin to become closed off to it. And the world calluses us. And it makes us so guarded to opportunity and so guarded to being able to accept different perspectives or different views. And so if you're going through the worst of it right now, I would almost take solace that, like, how beautiful is it going to be on the other side? You have to keep going. You have to
move through and beyond.
Literally, like so perfect because like that's so true. Like you should be almost giddy inside if it's bad and if it's getting worse, because you only have the up, and anyone who's been on the up or on the other side of the up will realize a very hard thing, that it wasn't the goal and the end result that made them really happy. Some of the most depressed people in life are Olympic champions.
Mm-hmm.
They get their gold,
Right.
and the world completely forgets about them for at least 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
They worked, they had the accolades, they had the cameras on them, they had everyone, the world looking at them on the world stage, and then that's gone.
Yeah.
They got up to the top of the hill, and they made the getting at the top of the hill and being there the
The end
goal,
goal,
and there's
yeah.
nothing on the other side of it but down.
Yeah.
What goes up must come down. And so I would say that, like, you have to find a way to love the suck, the bad things that happen. And if you can, and you can find a way to keep going, to not let it get to you, and to almost fake yourself in a way, pretend yourself in a way to already being in the journey and the process of the good, there is so much less wasted time, so much less wasted energy, and you can just start to begin to enjoy the process. I'm big on imagining like the Rocky theme song. When something's not going your way, in every movie, movies are heroes, that's it.
Yeah.
We want to see something bad happen to someone in the beginning. We want to see how they work through it and how they win at the end. Any movie that's ever captivated you follows that basic framework.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. So thank you for that. You are just, I truly could sit here and talk to you all day long.
We could talk all day long.
Well, you are such a special friend to me, as you know, and I appreciate you being here and just taking the time to drop all this amazingness.
Of course.
So,
Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you and our friendship and just how far we've both come.
Yeah.
And
So
where we're
true.
at now. I appreciate it.
How can people find you, Jeremy?
Yeah. If you are interested in creating your own online business, specifically being of service to others and being paid handsomely along the way, you can find me on social media. And even if that's not your thing, it's totally cool. At What Up Jeremy, pretty much everywhere on Instagram. Let me know that you came from the show. If you're listening through, maybe DM me the word beyond so I know you came from here. And yeah, that's where you can find me on social media.
Thank you. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So thanks for listening to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond, everybody. I'm Carey Conley, and I'm here to remind you to just keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.